Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our July 7th meeting of the Michigan City Common Council. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few things. One, please silence all phones and electronic devices. Please wear a mask to protect yourself as well as others. Some are provided on the table at the front if you do not have one. Also, please maintain a safe distance from the person to either side of you and sanitize your hands after touching hard surfaces. And now we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a silent prayer. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So our new microphones, to speak, you'll have to press this front button and the light will turn green and you'll be able to speak. And when you're done speaking, you can turn it back off and the glow will be red. Ms. Nyla, on the roll call, please.
Mr. Dabney?
Present.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Present.
Mr. Mack?
Present.
Ms. Deitch?
Present.
Mr. Don Prespolinski?
Present.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski?
Present.
Mr. Simmons?
Present.
Ms. Jiggis? Present. And Ms. Tillman? We have 9 present and no one absent.
Okay, we have a quorum. Okay, there's a small button on the bottom button. Make sure that's on, and then you should have a glow around the bottom ring. Toward the front, there's a little power. I got here early, so. Okay, so we want to move on to the approval of the minutes. So our normal procedures are a little different tonight because of the emergency order that was in place. We were allowed the ability to meet via Zoom or remote, and because of that situation, some of the things are being discussed have already been approved, but we have to do it in the view of the public. Attorney Myers, can you expound on that a little bit, please? Thank you.
Sure. As President Fitzpatrick said, the requirement under the law now, since you had the virtual meetings and not necessarily in the view of the public, although I guess there was some attempt to do Facebook streaming or whatever. What? The law requires at this point that you vote on anything you took a final vote on while you were having virtual meetings. And so in theory, the theory is that your constituents can see how you vote and hold you accountable for your vote. So I understand, we don't have a big audience. Of course, there's people watching on TV, we assume. But anyway, that's the minimum required, is that on the items you voted on, you do a public vote at this point.
Thank you, Attorney Myers. So our first up is approval of the minutes. So there will be 3 that we need to approve from our Zoom meetings prior to the last one we had. So our regular April 7th meeting, April 13th, and May 12th. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from those meetings?
Yeah, Mr. President, motion to approve.
Support.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Don Prespolinski and a second by Councilwoman Deitch. Are there any objections? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those is approved. So we also had the approval of our minutes from our last Zoom meeting, which was June 3rd. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of that meeting as well?
Yeah, Mr. President, motion to approve. Support.
I Have a motion to approve by Councilman Don Prespolinski and a second by Councilwoman Deitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on. Reports of any standing committees? Councilman Dabney?
Yes. Stick the fingers with the mask on. Alright. These are the minutes of tonight's July 7th Finance Committee meeting minutes. Finance Committee meeting was called to order at 6:05 PM by Chairman Dabney to review claims from this July 7th docket. Committee members Tillman and Paul Prespolinski were present, as well as council members Dalia Gigas and Sean Fitzpatrick. City Controller Yvonne Huffmaster was in attendance, as well as City Attorney Jim Meyer. Claims review totaled $4,795.54 from the Riverboat Fund, $129.69 of that being EFT payments, and $4,254.30 from the Boyd Development Fund, for a total docket of $9,049.84. There was further discussion about the Singing Sands Trail and some of the invoices and how those worked. We worked through those issues and got those questions answered. Councilman Paul Prespolinski moved to recommend approval of the docket, and with the second by Councilwoman Tillman, the motion was approved unanimously. And then on a motion made by Councilwoman Tillman and a second by Councilman Paul Prespolinski, the meeting was adjourned at 6:17 PM. Summary of claims goes as follows. From the Riverboat Fund, Verizon Wireless, $3,316.01. And these are monthly charges for the whole city in regards to mobile services. Brinkman's Towing and Auto, $163. Enterprise Rent-A-Car, $1,189.84. And from the Riverboat, the EFT payment was Comcast Business for $129.69. For a total from the Riverboat Fund of $4,795.54. From the Boyd Development Fund, there was $4,254.30. And just a quick explanation, one of the, or if you had a chance to see, there were payments to Primera in regards to the Singing Sands Trail. There were 3 purchase orders that were presented in that payment, where 20% of that total came from the Boyd Development. The other 80% was paid through what I believe is the Board of Works. So we had 20% of those invoice totals were paid to give us a total of $4,254.30. And that came put together with the Riverboat Fund, gave us a total claims docket of $9,049.84. And that concludes tonight's Finance Committee report.
Thank you, Councilman. So next, we need to approve the previous claims that were approved via Zoom, our virtual meeting. So I'm going to read off the totals, and I'll call for a motion to approve once we read them all. So from March 17th, 2020, the claims for that time period was $514,743.43. April 7th, 2020 claims docket, $428,111.97. April 21st, 2020 claims docket was $216,970.83. May 6th Riverboat claims docket, $4,237.48. May 19th, 2020 claims docket, $3,900,300.27. June 3rd, 2020 Riverboat claims docket, $1,521.89. June 16th Riverboat claims docket, $13,150. That will conclude those. Is there a motion to approve? Or are there any objections to the claims as followed?
I've so moved for adoption.
Motion approved by Councilman Paul Prespolinski and a second by Councilwoman Dyke and Councilman Simmons. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so there was a Riverboat Boy Development purchase orders petition that was approved on June 2nd in the amount of $63,270. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
I have a motion to approve by Councilman Dabney and a second by Councilwoman Deitch. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those are okay. So now we're down to our claims docket for this time period, July 7th, 2020. The claims total $9,049.84.
I so move for adoption.
Motion to approve by Councilman Paul Prespolinski,
Second.
second by Councilman Don Prespolinski. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Claims are approved. Reports of any special or select committees. Reports of other city officers and departments. And I do believe we have a presentation from Chief of Police Deon Campbell at this time.
Testing, very good. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Greetings to the council. I appreciate and thank you for having me today. I'm here to kind of let you know what the Michigan City Police Department has been doing since we took office. Let me please begin by thanking our community. The community has meant a lot to us here recently. In the aftermath of a very tumultuous protest that we had. Since the time of the protest, the outpouring of appreciation and respect and admiration from the community has been shown to our department that I have never seen in 20 years of being a police officer. Almost every day for the last 3 to 4 weeks, we have had individuals bring gifts, bring food, and it's been overwhelming. And I really want to thank the community for the appreciation that they have shown to us. We didn't realize it, but the protest that we recently had, someone filmed it, and there were 5,000 people viewing it live, and they got a firsthand look at the professionalism of our department. And at this time and in this moment, in these unprecedented times, I've never been more proud to be a Michigan City Police Department. That night was, that entire day was very difficult for all of us. We had expected about 60 people to show up for the protest. And it began at 6 o'clock and was supposed to end at 7:30. As 6 o'clock came, we had about 40 to 50 people out front. And we thought this is going to be good and it'll be over very quickly. Then we got a report that 500 people were walking down Cleveland coming our way. And after that, another 500 people came. There were over 1,000 people at the protest, and it was one of the most surreal moments that I have ever seen in my life. I was very proud of the way that our department handled themselves. We had eggs thrown at us. We had bottled waters thrown at us. There were all type of factions going on during the protest. There were those who were there for a peaceful protest. There were those that were there for violence. There were anti-government groups that were there specifically to try to incite the crowd and cause violence. And our men and women handled themselves with great integrity and great professionalism. As we went forward into the night, around 10:30, 11 o'clock, our men and women were tired, and the crowd had moved towards the Lighthouse Place at that time. And here's some behind the scene things that a lot of people don't know. We had an officer that was hit in the head with a brick, one of our commanders. And that gave us every right to begin to engage the crowd. But we had a supervisor there that made the decision that we're not going to let this incident ruin what we're doing. And we continued forward. And through a collective team effort, our department responded with bravery and kept our city safe. And I think that they should be applauded for what they did, the bravery that they showed. There were some exceptional people that night that led the way. First of all, I want to give appreciation to my assistant chiefs, Dave Cooney and Jillian Ashley. They did a phenomenal job. We were up through the night. We had less than 16 hours to prepare for the event, and we worked diligently. I'd also like to thank Sergeant Petrowski for putting together a tremendous game plan that kept our city safe. Everything that you saw was well planned out. I'd also like to thank Lieutenant Richardson, Lieutenant Drake, as well as Corporal Mike King for some of the decision-making processes that they did. I know I got a lot of accolades that night, but I tell you that it was an entire team effort, and I think that our department deserves to be applauded for that. Would you agree? Thank you. We're in very, very difficult times for everyone. And I'm going to be very transparent with you tonight and talk about our vision and core values, which was presented to our entire department between the week of March 3rd through March 10th. And it's very revelatory when you look at some of the things that we were trying to put in place before all of this happened in our world. To be honest with you, the men and women of the Michigan City Police Department are very tired. They're very hurt. It's been very, very difficult. Nationwide, more law enforcement agencies no longer want to be in the law enforcement business because of the climate that is in our world. I've never heard more people in my life say that they no longer want to be a police officer. And that's why I'm very appreciative of our officers who are riding through this thing, and they're going to come out stronger in the end. So what I want to present to you is what we've done thus far, what we're building at the Michigan City Police Department. And again, this was done March 3rd through March 10th. I guess I'll begin with my personal journey, the reason why I took the position. Please remember that taking this position was a very personal decision for me. I had plans that I had made to go on with my life. I was getting ready to retire, and I would have been well off financially with the job that I had waiting for me and the retirement. And at that time, our police department, the morale was very, very low. The political climate that we all know of, that I'm not going to talk about tonight, was very, very difficult for all of us to walk through. And it affected our department negatively like I've never seen before. When the opportunity arose for me to take this position, I couldn't walk away from it because, number one, I love our police department and I respect what it stands for, and I love our community. And those were the two driving factors for me to either do what I wanted to do with the rest of my life or stand up for my community, just like many of you in here on this council are doing right now. We are in an incredible time where we can make an impact. No, not one of us has been this way before. And it will behoove us all to put aside our differences and come together for our community and build something that they can be proud of. I want to build something that your sons, your daughters can be proud of, and that when people look at Michigan City, they can say that that is one of the premier police departments around. MCP is about its people and the people that we serve. Here's an interesting thing. Our department was trained for a world that no longer exists. And I think that all of us are dealing with the fact that the things that we held dear to ourselves, the values that we have held, have all disappeared. None of us have been this way before. In my 6 to 8 months of being police chief, we have faced so many adversities, including COVID-19, the protests, and the current climate that we're in right now. I want everyone to understand that Michigan City has changed. This is no longer the place that you thought it was. Just like the rest of the nation, our city has changed. And I believe that there are several reasons for that change. Michigan City used to be a place where everyone was homegrown. There were locals who held certain community values that we had all adhered to, and we existed in a lot of harmony. But that is no longer the case. Right now, we have more people in Michigan City that have no roots in Michigan City. They've come from larger cities because they find our city very attractive. And that has dynamically changed the culture of Michigan City. We also have a large homeless population, and we love our homeless population, but this has been some challenges. Michigan City has become the mecca for homelessness, where people from all over the region are coming here because of the services that we had. And again, let me emphasize, we are not against the homeless, but it has created some issues within our community that we have to deal with. And so with those factors being in place, it has actually changed the Michigan City that we all grew up and knew, and we've got to accept that fact and the changes that are coming. And that's why it's up to us in this moment to begin to build something better than we've ever seen before. As a police department, as I said, we were changed for a world that no longer exists. And the PowerPoint that you're seeing is what all our supervisors and all of our officers went through. We have always been trained to be warriors. We have always been trained to be those that would step to the battle and do what needed to be done. But one of the things that we realized is that we had to shift our mentality. We had to understand with the current situation that we have and the importance of community relationships that we had to also become guardians of the community. And that's been a difficult shift for police officers who were trained to be warriors. And I'm just trying to give you an insight into the type of culture that has to be built within every police department within this nation in order to find themselves effective in the landscape in which we now live. This requires a mentality shift, and that's not an easy thing in any department. Nationally, the entire law enforcement community is having to shift in the way that they are doing things, and this takes time. So I want to talk about some of the things that we emphasize at our meetings and what we're building as a culture inside the Michigan City Police Department. We're taking our logo, which is loaded with symbolism, and we are defining ourselves with 3 pillars of integrity, professionalism, and dedication. Integrity for us is having integrity means doing what is right in a reliable way. It's a personality trait that the public admires, since it means a person has a moral compass that doesn't waver. The quality of being honest and having strong moral principles and moral uprightness. This is pillar number 1 of the Michigan City Police Department. And when a person has integrity, which is something that you can't see, it's an internal compass, it manifests itself in professionalism. And this is our second core pillar. Professionalism is a personal quality and behaviors that demonstrate commitment to effective performance in policing. It requires competence, commitment, responsibility, and dependability. Honesty, ethics, in appearance, and professional presence are central characteristics. Professionalism, that's what we're striving for. And dedication. One of the things that we have been adamant in doing in our department is giving ownership to all the members of our department. When a person has ownership of the profession that they are in, they tend to treat it in a different way. Dedication has been a hallmark of our officers who have been overworked, and in the midst of an unprecedented stress, they've shown great internal fortitude and all that they have done. I've been amazed at the hours that they have put in fighting against the elements that all of us are shocked at when we look at what's trying to come into our city. So dedication. Dedication happens when you take ownership of the organization you work for. There must be full buy-in. Dedication is a feeling of very strong support and loyalty to a group or a person or a cause. Okay? So one of the things that we looked at, and I found quite astonishing, was I did some reading on a person who's called the father of policing. And he came up with 9 principles of policing that the Michigan City Police Department has adopted. I think whenever you look at an organization, you always have to go back to the original intention behind what policing means. And these are the 9 principles that he developed. And I think as we go over these 9 principles, you're going to be shocked at how relevant and meaningful they are to this day. And again, understand this is what we were already building inside the Michigan City Police Department. 3 cores. Number 1, the police earn public support by respecting community principles. Winning public approval requires hard work to build reputation. And what that means is enforcing the laws impartially, hiring officers who represent and understand the community, and using force only as needed. The key to preventing crime is earning public support. And right now, I'd like to say that the public support for us is at an all-time high, and we want to continue on that momentum. Here's the thing that is intriguing, and I want to challenge all of you in here today, as well as members of our community, that every community member must share the responsibility of preventing crime. It is very easy to point the finger at the Michigan City Police Department and think that we can solve it all, but that is not the case. It is a complete community effort. Everyone has to act as if they are all volunteer members of the force. One of the most difficult challenges that we have is that when we have a shooting, we are not always faced with people giving us the information that we need to solve the crime. And that comes with building trust in their police department. And I think that we're making great inroads in doing that. They will only accept, talking about the community, this responsibility if the community supports and trusts the police. And that's what we are building. The 9 principles, and I want you to take a look at these and understand that these are the things that we are already implementing and building. And it's more than just putting some words on a piece of paper. That doesn't change anything. You can put policy in after policy. One of the things that you're going to find, I know nationwide, that law enforcement is going to be reformed, and in some areas it should. But one of the things that you're going to find is a lot of the things that they are trying to reform are already built into the policies of most law enforcement agencies. So what this falls upon is leadership to take the time and be very deliberate and build a culture that is an adherence to the policies that are put forth. Policies with no action mean nothing. But leadership must be put in place that are going to implement these changes and begin to strategically build the culture and rehearse it and rehearse it and rehearse it until it becomes a reality. And that's what we're in the process of doing. Number 1, the basic mission for which the police exist is to prevent crime and disorder. Number 2, to recognize, and remember Robert Peel wrote this at the beginning of policing, to recognize always that the power of the police to fulfill their functions and duties is dependent on public approval of their existence, actions, and behavior, and on their ability to secure and maintain public respect. And that's why our officers have been getting out of their vehicle. They have been talking. They've been going to community meetings. They've been engaging our public like never before. I found it very interesting how 2 of our officers went on a call, and the mother asked the officers if the officers would spend some time with their children. And they did. They showed them the inside of their squad, of their vehicle. And the woman posted the picture on Facebook. And we got accused of doing a photo op for doing what the community member asked of us. But those are the type of things that we're facing. We understand the challenges, but we understand that our community is very important. Number 3, To recognize always that to secure and maintain the respect and approval of the public means always the securing of the willing cooperation of the public in the task of securing observance of the law. We've got to take a real look at our community and the values that are being espoused at this moment. Social workers, pastors, the city council, all of us, the government has to take an investment in engaging our communities and shifting their belief system and move them towards obedience of the law. Our community has to shift in how they engage and begin to do what's right, and that is a complete community effort. Number 4, to recognize always that the extent to which the cooperation of the public can be secured diminishes proportionately the necessity of the use of physical force and compulsion for achieving police objectives. And I find this very profound, that what Robert Peel was saying is that when people obey the laws, then there's a correlation between officers using physical force. And we've got to get to that point. Number 5, to seek and preserve public favor, not by pandering to public opinion, but by constantly demonstrating absolute impartial service to law, by ready offering of individual service and respect to all members of the public without regard to their wealth or social standing, by ready exercise of courtesy, and by ready offering of individual sacrifice in protecting and preserving life. And that's what we're after, that every member, no matter whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're straight, whether you're gay, no matter what your religious beliefs are, that everyone should be treated impartially and that there should be no favoritism. And that's what we're pushing. Number 6, police should use physical force to the extent necessary to secure observance of the law or to restore order only. Let me say that again. Police use physical force to the extent necessary to secure observance of the law or to restore order only. When the exercise of, and this is what we're building into the fabric of our belief system at the Michigan City Police Department, is when the exercise of persuasion, number 1, advice, number 2, and warning is found to be insufficient, that is when we're going to use physical force. Yes, keep our community safe. Number 7, to maintain at all times a relationship with the public that gives reality to the historic tradition that the police are the public and that the public are the police. I find that to be very powerful. One of the reasons that you don't see me in a uniform very often is because I want people to remember that I'm a part of this community, that I'm a man who lives in Michigan City, and I want the same things that they want. I want them to see me first and foremost as a human being that is doing a job in protecting our community. And I think it built some bridges with our community that people will talk and engage because we've learned to build relationship first and foremost. We remember that the police, being only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interest of the community welfare and existence. Number 8, police should always direct their actions strictly towards their function and never appear to usurp the powers of the judiciary. And again, this is what we're building inside the Michigan City Police Department. We are by no means a perfect department, but we do not fall into the models that we are seeing on media nationally. Now, I would challenge anyone to look at what's going on nationally and then look at our department and see if the national statistics are the same as the Michigan City Police Department. And I think that you will find a very large gap between what police officers are being accused of nationally and what actually is going on in the Michigan City Police Department. Yes, law enforcement reform is going to happen, and we embrace that. We embrace transparency, but we also ask that you judge our department on our merit, on our shortcomings, what we have shown, and not on what is going on nationally. Number 9, to recognize always that the test of police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder, and that's a community project, and not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with this. We're not effective because we keep arresting people. That does nothing. We need to deal with a root problem in our society. And as leaders in this community, that is our responsibility. Our leadership model has changed, and it's made a big difference in the way that we're doing things. My administration has chosen to be servant leaders, where we're putting ourselves on the bottom, and we're putting the Michigan City Police Department above us, and we're going to push them forward. We're going to empower them. We are training all of our officers to become leaders of the community. We don't want themselves to see themselves as just officers going on a call, but as guardians of this community. We understand that we're going into homes, that no one calls us when things are good, and we have the capacity and the ability to make life-changing decisions. Our officers are being trained to understand that people have different issues and different things are going on with them. And it's our job to begin the conversation when we have to go in on their worst day, and as leaders begin to move them towards understanding and clarity and assist them in their journey, or lead them to services that can help them to become better citizens. We understand that the more we pour into our officers, the more we build our officers, the more they feel good about themselves, that this model will cause community impact. Healthy, happy officers who are appreciated, who are equipped, who are resourced, make the best officers in their community. We don't want to be a department that is depleted of the resources that we need to do our jobs. You get chaotic departments when you begin to do that. Here's our strategy. We're looking at leadership and personal development. Yes, this is the Michigan City Police Department, and we are using business models to begin to train our officers. Myself and my two assistant chiefs are engaging a John Maxwell trainer, and she's going to come in and begin to talk to us about leadership principles. She's making a sacrifice and has cut her normal costs to begin to train us so that we can effectively begin to train our team. Number two, Michigan City is no longer going to outsource training, but we're going to make ourselves a training hub. We're not going to outside places, but what we're going to do is build this as a place where other departments come. We're still in the baby stages of that, but that is our goal. And we're after a development, a culture development of training and of leadership. And the end result of this is community impact. The more our officers understand their leadership role, their responsibility, that they are shifting. We will always be warriors. I will make that clear. There are times that all of us has experienced in our lives that you need a warrior there when things go absolutely bad. But we have to balance that with the more important and the essential aspect of being a guardian. And I think that's what's going to make us a much more effective department. Some of our current endeavors, we are getting ready to have cultural bias training. We're going through all of our policies. And one of the things that we found is a lot of the things that are being pushed today are already inside of our policies, but we're going to make sure that they line up with the current language of today. We are revisiting our use of force to make sure that they are in alignment with what is required in modern policing times. And number three, we're also going to begin some de-escalation training. These are the conversations that we are having. There was an email sent out to our entire department, and it was admonishing officers that if they ever see an officer doing something that is against our policies or that is against ethics, that they have a moral obligation to step in and stop that person. As a police officer, one of the things I understand is that we are put in some very dangerous situations, and it's very easy to lose focus in the midst of having someone pull a gun on you, someone getting ready to stab someone. You don't know how you will respond in situations like that. And we are training our officers that if an officer begins to go overboard, they are obligated to step in. And I think that that's only right and it's only fair. And these things, these thought processes are uniform within our department. Give you some quick data of what we're facing. As we said, Michigan City has changed. And and we're doing the best that we can with what we have at this moment, but we are required to do more. From January 1st through July 6th, the number of shootings in 2020, shot fired calls with report with shell casing and no victims were 41. Shootings with investigations were 38. We had total of 79 investigations that dealt with. Number of homicides in our city thus far have been 4. Attempted murder was 1, and that compares to the 2019 of 6 total homicides. So obviously one of the things that this points to is that there are an unprecedented amount of guns that are on the street. And our officers, our undercovers, our teams are working diligently at getting some of those guns off of the street. We need stronger gun laws. We need consequences for people that shoot and for people that commit these egregious crimes. And I think these are some of the factors that will help us to combat what's going on in our city. Let's look at the number of confiscated guns. 137 from January 1st to July 7th of 2019. And this is what's shocking to me, is this year, confiscated guns are up to 211 from January 1st to July 7th. Shot fired call totals for January 1st, January 7th of 2019 were 126. Shots fired calls from January 1st to July 7th was 204. Some of the hot spots in our city right now are East 10th Street and the Lafayette area, Washington Park Lot 1, the Pullman Field area, and the Eastport neighborhood. So what are we doing? 2 of the strategies that we have, our department is depleted right now. We are in need of more manpower. The financial situation of our city has caused everyone to pull back on some of the things that we're doing. And we have also seen that in our department. So one of the things that we have done is what we call violent crime reduction teams and SOG teams. And thus far, when we see these flare-ups in our street, we send out specialized unit. And so far, they have had 8 felony arrests and numerous seizures of drugs and guns. The drug problem in our city has risen, but we're also dealing with a drug epidemic. And our undercovers who used to be able to spend a lot of that time focusing on the guns, now we have to deal a lot with overdose case reports. Our LaPorte County Drug Task Force that thus far, they have had 74 felony arrest investigations, dealing charges, gun charges. But look at this number. Our overdose case report, which Drug Task Force does, fatal and non-fatal, have been 51 thus far this year. 30 of those have been investigated by our team. We had 5 overdose deaths in May, 9, and June, and these are countywide as investigated by our undercover. I thank you for your time. I wanted to present a very clear picture of what we have going on in our city. And I just ask that you support us in what we're doing. Our officers are very, very good. I've never been more proud to be on a department, and we just ask for support in what we're doing. Anyone have any questions or comments for me?
Thank you, Chief Campbell. Are there any questions for Chief Campbell?
I'd just like to thank the chief of the service and the men and women of the park. Have my.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Councilman Prespolinski.
Chief Campbell, I want to thank you and for the presentation and all the members of the police department on your strategy that you used with the outside agitators at that night of demonstrations. I was out of town and I was watching that on Facebook. But I do have a question, and it's related to comment that you made about outside influences in our community, and this isn't the same community that it was. And I think that a lot of the members of the city council recognize that. I certainly do. And I guess my big question is that the outside influence, people that aren't locals, are through your investigations, is that where a lot of this impact is coming from?
I'm going to say some, but not all. A lot of what we have is still local as well, but there's an added burden of what's coming in. The reality of it is Michigan City offers a lot of affordable housing, and what they were building inside of the school systems have become attractive with the Promise Scholarship. And a lot of people saw the beauty of Michigan City, the resources that we have, and they came here to build a better life. And when they come here, they're coming from cultures that are very different from the cultures that most of us adhere to. And we have to be very strategic in giving them services and shifting the mentalities of those that are coming here. Now, that's not everyone. Some excellent people are coming here from out of town, but we have seen a different influence here and a different mentality, and people that have not grown up in here, and that makes a big difference. It's harder for some people to do some things when you've grown up with them and their children and their grandchildren, and you know their family. That's the conversation where you go to your neighbor and you have that talk. We can't do that with a lot of things that we're seeing now in our city. Thank you for your question.
Councilman Mack.
Thank you for that excellent presentation, Chief Campbell. The things that really that got me, that I'm totally on board with everything you said, but then the way that you're educating the force as a business, using people to come in and change those philosophies is going to show fruit. Times are changing worldwide. You're seeing it everywhere. And being adaptable and recognizing the change is something that it's great to have somebody like yourself on the forefront. And the thing that really hit home with me is the part about training and development and creating our own experts. We have a unique community, and every community is unique. But we're surrounded, we've got a lot of talent. We've got a lot of talent coming out of our high school and coming out of our colleges. And as soon as we begin to utilize that in a lot of different ways, not just in the force, that's where I think our win is going to come. And the final thing I'd say is a lot of this is driven by anger. A lot of our community deals, whatever the basis of this anger is, you see simple traffic running into a cart with your car can create crazy issues that weren't necessarily there before. And to me, anger issues also go back to education. Paul and I were just speaking of educate all of these guns out here, and nobody's being trained how to use them. You got some of the most angry, ill-equipped people having guns because that's our country now. And we're sitting on a precipice where we could actually be the leaders of educating, training, and de-escalating that stuff from where we sit. So thank you, and anything I can do, I'm on board.
Thank you, and we look forward to collaborating with the council to make our city safer. So I don't want to take up any more of your time, and I thank you for that.
Mr. President,
If I may. Councilman President, I think I had a couple more questions.
Okay, just a comment. I really do appreciate you coming to us and laying out the plans that you are doing to better the police department rather than us having to try to force something upon you. You guys have jumped out in front of this, and I'm very proud to see that because I see all over the country other departments and they're fighting these changes that are coming. Yes. And you recognize those and you get down in front of it. So I really do appreciate you coming to us and telling us what you plan to do in terms of training and things like that to help out with the force. So that was a really good presentation, and I'm proud of it.
I really appreciate you saying that, and I want to just remind everyone, but these were the things that we put in place in March and that we've been talking about right before COVID hit, and right before these protests. So we're moving in the right direction, and I appreciate it if you would have some faith in us and the belief that we're going to do what's right. And we'll open it up to transparency, and we've got some other ideas, which when we have more time, I'm going to explain some of those things that we're doing that I think the community would be proud of and that this council would be proud of, as well as our mayor.
Councilman President.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chief, for the presentation. Very good, and I back the Michigan City Police Department 100%. I want to applaud you and the department for the job that you did on the Black Lives Matter march. I took part in that march, my son and I saw you that evening, came up and shook your hand.
Yes.
Told you what a great job you did, so I appreciate that. Just to go back to your presentation, because I am not a lawyer or a gun lobbyist, and you may know more about this than I do, but you said one of the root causes of the problems that we have in Michigan City are with guns, guns on the streets. So you said to make gun laws tougher, there's another thing that or penalties also tougher. But how do you go about that? I mean, we as a city council, I'm sure we'd love to help, but how does that come about? I mean, do you have to work through the state legislature?
Yes.
Through the county prosecutors?
Yes.
They're the guys that push
Yes, sir.
those laws?
Everything that you said is absolutely correct. There has to be a push. Right now, gun permits are free, and the access and the obtaining of guns is like I have never seen it before. And we've just got to have stricter gun laws in place for those who are using them illegally or commit crimes. That's what I'm referring to specifically. There's got to be tougher penalties. It used to be a time when you were a convicted felon and you were caught with a gun, it was an automatic 5 years, but those things have been diminished, and we've got to go back to those, or we're going to continuously see an uptick in these type of violent crimes. Thank you. That was a good question. Thank you.
Councilwoman Deitch.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chief Campbell. So, I actually had a resolution that I pulled. I actually reached out to Chief Campbell. I keep wanting to say Deanna, but Chief Campbell to talk to him specifically about, what's been happening and talk about, what he was going to present. But still, we all support the police department, but people are asking questions. You're talking about, the shootings and the things, and thank you for coming out to some of those events. But I guess one of the things I have a question about is everybody keeps bringing up that term community review board. What does that mean for the police department? Because that's what people are coming to us about in the community in some cases, and they throw that around the country. That's a buzzword now. And I know, many of you from, hanging out and being friends with a lot of the officers, but we're just at a different space and time, just like, and we know that, and we have an obligation as the city council too, to make sure that the community feels safe and also provide resources to you. So one is, community review board, that's come up multiple times during the election. How you see that, because I know that you're looking at doing some things from your perspective, so I want you to share that. And then second, what are we doing about mental health for our officers as we go through this process too? Because they're impacted, they see what's happening. My brother's in law enforcement in Florida, and it's rough on him, and I see the stress and the strain on him. So those are the two things I would like you to kind of just talk a little bit about because I know that's why I pulled my resolution to make some changes and some adjustments based on our conversation, but just to talk about that a little bit.
Okay, let's start with the mental health. And actually, I edited this PowerPoint because some of that stuff was personal to our officers. And one of the things we talked about was we have ample systems in place for their mental health, but the nature of police officers is tough to our own detriment. And one of the things we tried to do was demystify that toughness and understand the amount of stress that we're under, and make available. The city does a good job in providing mental health providers for us, but it's a matter of getting officers to take advantage of that. And in alignment with that, one of the things we talked about, because of the stress of our job, remember, no one calls us when things are going well, they only calls us when things are going bad. And after 10 years, 15 years, 20 years of dealing with negativism on a daily basis, and then have what is happening in our country with how people feel about law enforcement, in particular for those law enforcement officers who take such pride in their job, it is very hurtful and painful thing, and a lot of us are dealing with that. On top of that, it's tough on marriages. I remember times when multitudes of our officers, their marriages were destroyed because of this occupation. So we've also put a priority on family and spouse life, and that this job is not to take precedent over your family, but that you should prioritize that. Now, when it comes to the Community Review Board, I'm very mixed about that, because I don't want it to be people from the community who just have an axe to grind. Our department is very much for transparency, very much for making sure that there are checks and balances in place. And I think that we proved that by putting a first step in our internal investigations team, which is a very diverse group of people that we thought would do a very good job with dealing with our investigations. I think that there's a lack of understanding on the role of commissioners and that the power that they have. And I think that when you look at a Citizens Review Board, it's already in place with your commissioners. They have more authority than you realize to discipline officers. They have more authority than you realize to hire. They actually have a bigger role than I have in the hiring of our officers, which I think is very important if we're going to build a police department that reflects this community. And so I think that I challenge this council to revisit the commissioner's board for the police department and use that as an avenue to put greater oversight over the police department, and that we will embrace. And and I think that those people should be highly qualified. You can't just have a bunch of disgruntled people. But at the same time, we all agree that the police department should have an outside view. I had a conversation with my assistant chief today, and we were talking about the blind spots that the community has for what we do, and what we as law enforcement officers, we have blind spots as far as what the community sees. And it's good to have that outside influence. As you know, we put together the internal investigation teams, and one of our goals was to find an outside person who understands law, who is a thinker, who is unbiased, and yet has the heart of the community, and make them a part of that investigative team. And that's our next movement to do that. And I also plan on putting together an advisory board which would serve two purposes. They would have influence with me, and there would be a very diverse group from the community that would sit down with me monthly or bi-monthly, and they would represent different segments of the community. And that would not undermine what you're doing, but I'm looking at people who are on the ground with the community, doing some of the organizations, and they would have an ear with me, and then I could also open up our department to them and let them see how we work, how we operate, what our laws are, what our policies are, and have a conversation where they would have an influence, and then take one person from that committee who is well qualified and make them a part of our internal investigations team. We would embrace that, and that's what we're in the process of doing already.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. I had just a couple quick questions. So,
If my wife gets upset with me, I'm going to deal with all of you.
oh man, hopefully this is quick. So the gun confiscation numbers that are slightly increased this year.
Say it again, sir. I couldn't hear what you just said.
The gun confiscation numbers that are slightly increased this year.
Yes, sir.
What is the cause of the numbers? Is it because there's more guns, or is it more interactions with police? Are they from calls for service, or they're incidental findings?
I think it's the climate that we live in, that more and more people want to arm themselves. We live in very tumultuous times And the imagery that we see on social media, in the news, it has created an atmosphere of violence. And I think people are responding to what they feel nationally and what they feel in their region, and they're wanting to protect themselves. Unfortunately, some of these guns are getting in the hands of the wrong people, and we have that uptick in guns on the street. I can't really pinpoint why this is happening, but that's the reality of what we have, sir.
Okay. So, and with the increased number of guns, and then, like you said, the free permits, meaning more people are legally acquiring the right to carry firearms, is there room for the police department to have a sort of training courses or gun safety workshops or something, so the public that are arming themselves, know how to handle a firearm, know how to store a firearm, know how to protect that firearm so it isn't taken and used against them, so we don't have more tragic things happening because of more guns being out there?
I think for law-abiding citizens, and when we revisit our Citizens Academy, those are the type of things that we would do. But I think that one of our greatest fear is making sure that we identify law-abiding citizens, and for us not training those who would use those guns in the wrong way. And that's how do you determine why a person wants to be trained. But I agree with your initial assessment, but it have to be law-abiding citizens, and that's something that we would embrace as we revisit our Citizens Academy. Okay. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And last question, and then I'll let you go. So. Oh, Daddy still have. Okay. I'll skip my last one. Then I'll let.
Thank you very much for that presentation. It was quite enlightening. I'm very glad to hear that you're doing some de-escalation training. As a matter of fact, I think, one of your hats is social worker. When you show up at a household where they have a domestic problem, you've got to quickly assess the situation and deal with it. I think it's unfortunate if we see someone on the street with mental health issues, that's who we have to call, the police. And I wish we had some kind of another layer, or they had a strategy once they show up. Well, let's call this social worker or this agency, a procedure. But hats off to you, because that isn't really. You might have to show up with a gun, but then there's little kids, and all kinds of things.
And you bring up a very valid point, and one of the things that I hope that we do in the future is I think that the police are called into situations that they have no business being in. If you have a mental health patient, the first call should not be to the police department. If you have a child in a home who is acting up and the parents can't handle them, that shouldn't be a police officer's job to be the first one there. If you have citizens who are disputing over their property and you call the police, we are put in a lot of positions that we shouldn't be put in because of how resourceful we are. We are working on holidays. We work 24/7. And one of the things that I would suggest is that we begin to look at different ways of circumventing what we have police officers do and keep us in the realm of law enforcement and begin to put that burden on some of these social entities. The issue becomes that they have to become like us and be available 24/7, and not a lot of people are willing to do that. But I think that police officers are unfairly put in positions that they shouldn't have to, and a lot of your complaints come forth with those type situations. Of course, if they're in need and danger, we will always show up. We will always be there. We will always do our job. But we are unfairly put in positions that we shouldn't be put in, and I think that you bring up a very, very valid point.
Yeah, de-escalation would help that out.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, that's one of the things, the mayor came to my office and was talking about de-escalation, and that's been one of our priorities. And we're looking at that, but I think we do a pretty good job of it. Again, I say we don't fit the narrative nationally. I hope I haven't painted an unfair picture. We are not perfect. We have issues just like every department. And I kind of look at it like this. I'm a father of children. All of them come under my household, but not all of my children always do what they want to do. Leadership is kind of like that as well. You can teach and build culture, but sometimes people do things that you don't like them to do. That doesn't mean that they're a bad person, but that means that people make mistakes. And one of our jobs is to continue to build a culture where those instances are less and less and less. And this is what we're trying to do collectively. And our department has really responded well to this. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Chief. Okay, moving on, we have communications.
Correspondence was received in the clerk's office on June 15, 2020 from Mr. Rodney McCormick regarding the Michigan City Housing Authority. Mr. McCormick asked that this be read for the record. This report began after I received 75 complaints in one day with the living conditions in Garden State, Lakeland Estate, and Scatter HUD Housing of June 8, 2020. I received a return call from Mayor Dwayne Perry, who asked me to meet him at the Housing Authority building located on Michigan Boulevard. Those present were Christina Van Borg, myself, Mayor Perry, and Stacy Benning, and from the Housing Authority, Norman Thomas, and a maintenance Superintendent Clem. At this meeting, the mayor addressed concerns for the citizens who reside in the public housing units of the Housing Authority. The executive director was asked, what is it that the city can do to help with these problems that they are occurring? One of the biggest issues is that there's only two maintenance people. Everyone else has decided to quit. We were also informed that one of the Section 8 housing units on Caroline Court would receive a new roof soon. The mayor asked how many vacant units were there in the Housing Authority. We were told there were only 2 vacant units. Sadly, this was a blatant lie. The Lakeland Estates alone have 7 vacant units. 2 of them were a 5-bedroom family unit. The executive director, Ms. Thomas, agreed to allow the Michigan City Building Code Enforcement Officer to inspect the numerous units. Mayor Perry also inspected a couple of the units on his own. On June 9, 2020, at approximately 12 p.m., myself and the building inspector, Christina, arrived at Lakeland Estate. I must point out the numerous tenants informed us that they feel they were going to be retaliated against if they said anything or even allowed us to enter the unit. Despite the fear of the several tenants, many tenants allowed us to inside their units, and we were discovered the following hazards: broken windows, windows that were unable to be locked, windows that would not fully close, no screens, buckling exterior walls, faulty plumbing, severe water damage in ceiling, and decayed subfloors in the bathroom. In fact, there were 2 units where the toilet seemed to be ready to fall through the floor, along with shower in the shower area. Very poor ventilation, black mold, cabinets that were falling off the walls, cabinet doors that were missing, serious roofing issues, new downspouts with no gutters at the top, units that could be handicap accessible but were not, missing anti-skid panels on stairs, front columns that were ready to fall apart, doors that would not lock, serious electrical issues in the backside of Lakeland Estate that caused severe power surges, excessive puddles of rain outside dryer vents completely clogged, missing door and window trim inside and out, poor water drainage in the sink, trash cans overflowing, vandalism by way of graffiti and eggs all over the apartment windows, lack of security. Security cameras should be installed, excessive heat inside of apartments, inoperable appliances, walls and ceilings that need to be painted. Tenants were allowed to move to units that were not ready to be moved into, no work permits for many of the jobs that were done, excessive trash access, majority of complex, unsafe playground, equipment, animals living behind hanging overhead, holes in exterior walls, spiders, wasp nests hanging between the peaks of several units, anthills, very poor landscaping such as grass cutting and no weed trimming against the units and sheds in the areas. There are a lot of more issues, but I think I have identified enough to show how severe the problem is. There is no way that a maintenance team of 2 individuals could ever get caught up to repair every unit in the city. This problem did not occur several months time or 1 year. It's obviously that it has been years of neglect throughout the public housing. I now recommend the following as short-term solution. The immediate removal of the executive director of the staff members. B, a fresh perspective on board. Consider adding a resident or two to serve. The city attorney sent correspondence to the Secretary of the Housing and Urban Development, Ben Carson, asking to declare a state of emergency of the Michigan City Housing Authority. D, make sure that the next executive director and staff are professional and have experience. Maintenance department need to hire more help and signify pay raise. And an investigation in section 8 as numerous reports of family and friends receiving benefits instead of people who qualify for first-time homebuyer program with HUD. Conduct a forensic investigation into money and quarterly or monthly inspections for more severe units performed by HUD officials and city code. Long-term, build new housing units. 2, demolish Gardner State and Lake State and rebuild. Roddy McCormick. Correspondence was also received in the clerk's office on June 17th from Mayor Perry regarding protocol for obtaining information for city departments by city council members, and correspondence was also received in the clerk's office on June 11th from Braxton Hervey regarding the Michigan City Promise Scholarship.
Thank you, Ms. Nyla. We're on to our approval of our resolutions during the COVID. Can you read the first one by title only?
Resolution number 4777, requesting the governor of Indiana to provide immediate financial relief to local governments to enable them to best serve their constitution during the COVID-19 emergency. And this was introduced by Mr. Don Presebalinski and co-sponsored by Mr. Paul Presebalinski, Ms. Deitch, Mr. Dabney, Mr. Simmons, Ms. Fitzpatrick, Ms. Tillman, Mr. Mack, and Ms. Shake. April 7th, 2020, this was approved to 9-0.
Okay, Mr. Myers, so we need to vote individually on each one, just a ratification of it, and then we can move on to the next one, or can we read them all and then do them?
No, you have to vote each one separate.
Okay. And do we need to read the entire portion of this, or just the title? And
No, all you need to read is the title.
okay.
You can read more if you want, but legally what you're required to read is the title.
And does it need to be a roll call vote, or we just if there's an objection vote?
It does not need to be a roll call.
Okay. So after reading that, are there any objections to the passage of this resolution?
You have to ask for a motion in a second.
So move.
Okay.
Second.
So a motion was made by Councilman Paul Presebalinski and seconded by Councilman Dyke. And if there are no objections, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, resolution passed.
You want me to read it again?
Yeah, or, yeah.
Okay. Resolution number 4778, waiving certain procedures and formalities during disaster emergency pursuant to IC 10-14-3-17. This is introduced by Mr. Fitzpatrick, and it was virtually passed on April 7th, the 9-0 vote.
I move for adoption.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt by Councilwoman Deitch and second by Councilman Don Presebalinski. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next resolution was virtually approved on April 13th for a 9-0 vote. Resolution number 4779, approving the extension of the mayor's executive order number 04-2020, declaring a public health emergency due to the COVID-19 virus. And this is introduced by Mr. Fitzpatrick and co-sponsored by Mr. Don Presebalinski, Mr. Dabney, Ms. Deitch, Ms. Zegas, Ms. Tillman, Mr. Mack, and Mr. Paul Preselinski, and Mr. Simmons.
Move for adoption.
Support.
A motion to approve by Councilwoman Dyke, second by Councilman Paul President and Don President. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next resolution was approved on May 12th by an 8-1 vote. And this resolution number 4780, approving the extension of the mayor's executive order 05-2020, extending the declaration of a public health emergency due to the COVID-19 virus. And it's introduced by Mr. Fitzpatrick and co-sponsored by Mr. Don Preselinski, Mr. Dabney, Ms. Deitch, Zegas, Tillman, Mr. Mack, Mr. Paul Preselinski, and Mr. Simmons.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilman Don President, second by Councilwoman Dyke. Did want to note that there was not a unanimous vote on this. Should we?
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, any object? One,
I was the nay
Okay.
vote, so.
Council Dabney and Nate, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next resolution was virtually approved on June 3rd. The vote was 8-1. Resolution 4781, making recommendations, request regarding NIPCO's removal of coal ash from its Michigan City facility to maximize public safety and the ability to monitor the implementation of the project, express concerns, provide input to address. And this was introduced by Ms. Vegas and co-sponsored by Mr. Mack and Mr. Don Preston.
There wasn't a nay, there was an abstention.
I'm sorry.
There wasn't a nay.
Right.
There was abstention.
Staying.
Oh, that was you. I'll, the next.
Is there a motion to
Motion to approve.
Second.
approve by?
And you're
Councilman-
abstaining? Okay, thank
Motion.
you.
President, second. We haven't. Favor,
Aye.
So that is the that we're doing our, so it's not a first resolution by title only without a,
A resolution by title only requesting the Michigan City Plan Commission review and consider repealing section 17.02 in the Michigan City zoning code entitled landscaping requirements. And this is introduced by Mr. Paul Preselinski. It's note, did you want me to read the note? Note that the proposed resolution was read by title only on February 4th with Councilman Paul Preselinski asking to table it until March 17th, council meeting due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
are there any comments?
Yes, I spoke with the president earlier today, and I am, at this time, I want to table this for 3 meetings so that hopefully the tree board will resume their meetings or to talk to them individually to explain that what is actually asked, that I'm going to, what we're doing here, I'm going to the Plan Commission to amend the restrictive language in the code on land development. So with saying that, I would like to table this for 3 meetings. So I can talk to the tree board and get those people to understand what we're trying to do here, to have more development in Michigan City.
Support.
And so there's the motion by the, Council Paul President, table this resolution for 3 meetings that was supported by Councilwoman Deitch. All in favor, signify by. Aye. All opposed? So now we're on our ordinance passed during the pandemic, COVID-19. Ms. Nyla?
An ordinance on first reading that was read on May 15th, proposed ordinance. May 13th, the proposed ordinance read on first reading and was tabled until joint for the following. Amending section 38-33, section 38-30 for the municipal code to provide emergency relief funds. And the vote was 9-0. The next ordinance on first reading, amending section 38-40 of the municipal code to provide for emergency relief funds to city residents. And this is introduced by Ms. Dyke. On May 13th, the proposed ordinance was read on first reading and was tabled until a joint workshop scheduled by the following vote, 9-0. The next,
Jim.
Since they were tabled, do we need to take action, or do we still need to vote on them being tabled, or?
Somebody would have to move to have it taken off the table, and then it would, be in front of the council.
So they
Just
are,
like any other time.
so they're still tabled, so are they a non-issue right now until they're brought off the table?
Correct.
Okay. Does the third ordinance,
an ordinance creating section 94-79 and Division 3 of Chapter 90 Commission Code, adding provisions regarding traffic warning signs for children with hearing or vision impairment or disability. And this is introduced by Ms. Tillman and co-sponsored by Ms. Simmons. May 12th, the proposed ordinance read on reading by title only, discussion ensued, author's amendment by substitution proposed on a vote of 9-0 with proposed ordinance moving to second reading at the next council. The next one is ordinance second reading, amending section 38-33 and section 38-4 of the municipal code by emergency relief funds to city businesses. And this was introduced by Ms. Dyke, co-sponsored by Ms. Pat. Note, this was tabled at a special meeting held on April 12th. On June 3rd, 2020, the proposal discussed with it being tabled indefinitely by the following vote, 9-0.
Point of order.
Ms. Council?
On the, going back, I'm sorry, before then, the one, the previous one, introduced by Tracy Tillman.
Disability.
Yes. Multiple council members.
I have on here with the additional people I added to it.
Perfect.
Yes,
Just
yeah.
check. Thank you.
Next one was an ordinance on second reading, an ordinance to amend section 2-399 of the Michigan City Municipal Code, designated the common council as a city agency with the sole authority to purchase storage city's riverboat fund and Boyd Development Fund. And this was introduced by Mr. Dabney and sponsored by Ms. Tillman, Mr. Paul Preston, and Mr. John. On April 7th, proposed ordinance read on second reading by title only and moved to third reading at the April 13th. Ordinance on third reading by title only, ordinance number four.
Okay. So with that one on, we did second and third reading on it?
They're just considered tabled until you either put them on a new agenda, which you could
Now
do
this one
if they
was-
weren't tabled, or, if somebody wants to move to have it on the agenda, amend the agenda to put it on for tonight, you can do that as well.
Now these passed.
No, these were, so far, none of them passed.
Now this one went to second reading.
This one's gonna pass third reading,
Okay, so that's when we take the vote on it.
right?
Okay.
Am I correct?
That's when, so it did go third reading, and we adopted it at the 13th meeting, so.
No, it was, did you vote on it at April 3rd meeting? I don't think.
Yes.
We
I mean,
did
April-
virtually. Virtually, we voted it on the April.
Oh, Okay.
The April 13th meeting, that's why second and then the third.
So it was voted on and approved? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So after the third reading, right now,
No, we approved
Approved that it was-
We just have to do it public.
okay. Okay,
Can I read it?
yeah. Okay.
An ordinance on third reading, ordinance number 4542, an ordinance to amend section 2-399 of the Michigan City Municipal Code designating the common council as city agency with the sole authority to approve purchase orders from the city's riverboat fund and Boyd Development Fund. And this was introduced by Mr. Dabney, co-sponsored by Ms. Tillman, Mr. Paul Prespolinski, and Mr. Don. And on April 13th, it was virtually approved of a 9-0 vote.
I move for adoption.
Second.
The motion to approve, adopted by Councilwoman Dyke, second by Councilman Don Prespolinski. All in favor, signify by
Aye.
all opposed, same sign. Ms. Nyla, that concludes our virtual ordinance. Our first ordinance by title only, first ordinance on first reading by title only.
An
Without
ordinance,
objection.
an ordinance on first reading by title only, approving additional appropriation in the budget of the Barker Civic Center Fund for the purchase of supplies to restock the gift shop for the Barker Civic Center. This ordinance was read on first reading by title only at the March 3rd, 2020 council meeting. The formal public hearing was advertised on the February 25th, 2020 in the News Dispatch, and will be re-advertised in the News Dispatch on July 8th to reschedule the formal public hearing on second reading at the July 21st council meeting due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Does the author have anything to add to this at this time?
This was simply $1,200 in addition to replenish the gift shop in order for them to sell items, gift shop.
Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Having none, any council comment? Okay, this will go to second reading. Ms. Nyla, second ordinance on first reading by title only without objection.
An ordinance on first reading by title only, creating section 2-410.2 in chapter 2 of the Michigan City Municipal Code to create an airport donation fund. And this is introduced by Mr. Simmons. The proposed ordinance was to be read on first reading at the March 17, 2020 regular council meeting. Due to COVID-19, the meeting was canceled.
Does the author have anything to add at this time?
Yes, this was in regards to the airport manager, Jessica Ward, and John Stemley.
Can you hear him? Move the mic a little closer so I can't make out what you're saying, yeah.
Again, this is in regards to airport manager Jessica Ward, and Johnny Stemley was creating a drone camp for young people. They collected over $2,500 and did not have an account in which to put it in. Jessica's here tonight and she can more articulate.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Jessica Ward, Airport Manager. Do you guys have any questions for me? The airport's never had a donation fund before. We've never actually gone out and requested donations from members of the public and businesses in our community. So this was just, we decided we wanted to do a summer drone camp for high school children. And we were gonna have it in June, but of course with COVID-19, everything got canceled, so we weren't able to do that. But we already have the donations that were given to us from the community, and we need a proper place to put them. And that's what it's for. And we are planning on doing camps in the future, and I'm using the money for those purposes.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public, or does anyone have any questions? Oh, thank you. Is there anyone from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Are there any council comments? If none, this will move to second reading. Ms. Snyder, our third ordinance on first reading by title only without objection.
An ordinance on first reading by title only, adopting policy to allow 5% of riverboat funds to be used to fund the city's operating expenditures from the general fund and dedicating 50% of the riverboat revenues to increase the rainy day fund balance up to a minimum of $6 million. And this is introduced by Mr. Fitzpatrick.
So this came to me in direct result to the current financial situation we found ourselves in at the beginning of this year, and the lack of preparedness we had for the COVID-19 pandemic, and the really lack of funding because we didn't have riverboat payments coming in. So I think that it's just being fiscally responsible as the fiscal body of the city to put something in place, so if this were to occur again in the future, or if this continues beyond our foreseen vision, that there's something in place, and at least we'll have a cushion to fall back on if we're in this situation again. So I think it's imperative that we build up a reserve cash fund. See it as how we were down to pretty much pennies in the bank. And I also think that we shouldn't depend so heavily on the riverboat for our operations. It should be something that we look at as an addition to what our funding can do versus the main driver of what the city operates on. Because as we all saw, it could be taken away, and we'll be in a bad situation. So that's where this came from, and I think that it's definitely something we should move forward on. Is there anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Having any council comment? Councilwoman Dyke.
Was there any particular reason the 5%? I know that previously we got it down to 20% on the city council, and I know that LaPorte, the county council, has done something like this in building up their reserve 10 million. But do we have any data? I mean, was there any particular reason
No.
for 5%?
The reason why I said 5% because there is an ordinance that was in place that allows 20%, but right now we're getting 0% from the riverboat. So we should operate as if we get 0%. So I think 5% is generous, and there's always the funds there. If in the future there's a need for additional appropriations, any office, any department could come to us for whatever funding they need, but the funding has to be there. If we spend it all in operations or whatever, and it's not even there when we need it, I think that's something to be proactive about. And the 50% of the riverboat, that's where the county built up their reserve. So 50% automatic goes off until it builds up, which, when we hit this, we were pretty much at almost zero balance, and they had a surplus of over 10 million. That's where they're. So I figured we're not scalable to them, so 10 million is probably too much like that thick. So once that builds up, then whatever we have after the 6 million is built up, we can use however fit. Council Dabney.
Yeah, just as a quick reminder as to what we had at the end of the year, last year, in regards to the Riverboat Fund, we actually were sitting at about $3.9 million moving into 2020, but we had to do some transfers that kind of emptied out the Riverboat Fund. I could name them all, but I won't waste the time. I've done that probably like 3 or 4 times, even in the newspaper. But I don't see this right now because I think it's a bad financial move for the city. First of all, we're getting squeezed right now with tax collection on one side. We were expecting, or we did a projection of about $4 million in this past tax collection. We got about 6.8, which in everybody's mind said, well, that's $2 million more, but it was still $2 million short of what we normally get. So we're being squeezed on that side with property tax. Now to come from the other side and take money off the table that could be used for operating funds right now, I think it's going to be detrimental to the city because, give some example. Use an example. If we have $10 million, and let's say we use 50% of those riverboat funds, that would be $5 million that would be able to support the operating budget. Down to where we were before. Take us down to $2 million, we would be able to use in the operating fund. Going down to take us down to $500,000 that we could use in the operating fund. So we're looking at a difference of $4.5 million. And if this is put in place and happens in our next budget, we have to find $4.5 million basic. That's an approximation, but just so everybody understands the numbers that we would have to cut out of our operating budget to survive. And the only way I see that happening with this quick move like this is it's going to cut services. Going to kill us. The only way to get $4.5 million or so cut right now is you're talking about heads, talking about people, you're talking about service. I understand, where this is coming from, and if we were $15 million riverboat fund, see us being able to do that, but we have just been talking about cash flow issues, and I think we still need to have these dollars on hand to be able to get through this. And this is not unprecedented. Back in 2007-8, when the economy crashed, we had the big tax issues in the county. We had to increase the levels that we were using from the riverboat in order to get through, to keep our operations going without letting heads go. And still over time, I know of a certain department that I was in, that I was a president of the board, where we were losing a full-time maintenance person just about every year. They went from about 8 down to what they have now, 2 or 3. And they're running around with 26 parts to maintain on just 3 people, full-time people. Right now, we're going to be squeezed on both ends. And the only way to make that big of a difference is we're talking about people. We're talking about service. My mind is really scary to me. And pull ourselves through and get back into some regular operations. Like I said, we have tax collecting problems as well as riverboat problems. And in my mind, thinking of my personal wallet, if I'm struggling to pay the rent, I wouldn't open up a savings account with that money that I would need to pay the rent at this time. So that's the way I think about it. And, just wanted to make that point. But I do understand the intent of what Councilman Fitzpatrick is trying to do. But I think if we were sitting at a much higher level of riverboat funds, it would be a lot more easy to do. But right now, we still have cash flow, and we're going to need, I think, at least have a chance at every single penny that we might have to run the city.
Thank you, Councilman.
President,
Councilman, President.
by having this ordinance presented to the council and to the public, reflecting on TV, that without having true numbers, what the true fact, what effect this is going to have on the city, what effect it's going to have on city employees, what effect it's going to have on city services, what effect it's going to have on the police department, fire department. We had the chief of police standing in front of us tonight saying that he could use more officers. We have an increase in gun violence in our community. What we need to do, and Mr. President, you would assign Councilman Dabney, being the chairman of the Finance Committee, that we put a workshop together with the city controller so that she can explain what 5% riverboat running on a balance of that rather than a balance of 20, what effect that'll have on the city balance or city operation. We need to know facts, figures, what's going on with this 5% running the city and then trying to put 50% the riverboat revenues into a rainy day fund that we could actually be using on special projects. So that's my recommendation, that we have a workshop, city controllers involved, get the numbers together, and let's make a decision on what we know, and everybody's going to have the same facts and figures. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other council comment? Any other council comment? Well, I have a final comment. If we have 0 riverboat, what do we do at that point? I don't know who would be able to answer that, because I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be able to spend anything if you didn't have anything coming in. So, for any other comment? I think Councilman Mack.
Having done budgets before, I'm in agreement with President Fitzpatrick on this, because we're talking about budgetary, we're talking about projections on this. So it wouldn't necessarily create a cut. It would create the urgency to create a budget without that. If you're going into a budgetary season and you've got a extra piece of change in your pocket, you're gonna always spend it, always. So putting a constraint on the future budget will force a conversation of needs and necessity, because if our current services are going to eat up every bit of this riverboat as it sits right now, what do we do the following year and the following year? Are we just putting off difficult budgetary conversations until the riverboat goes to a 0? So I've always been one to try to address the difficult conversations early, and I don't see, as President Fitzpatrick said, if there's a need after the budgetary analysis, those monies can be, individually just appropriated. But we should attempt to do like other communities and use those funds in a manner that's just not going to continuously increase our services in a time where the entire city and the state is under big-time budget constraints.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Jigas.
So I have a question. We may already have to cut services due to our income right now. So are you willing to make a list of what we need to cut right now before we even get into the budgetary? Because I think we're in trouble now. And when you get in trouble is not the time, I'm just put in a savings, even though I need to take care of business. I'm just a little concerned, and I think that work would be relevant.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other council comment? Councilman Simmons.
Yes, I'm in favor of a workshop as well. And I'm also in favor of rainy day. But however, we're right now at a possible another COVID shutdown. And we all know it's going up, not down. So we've got another shutdown looming, and then they've already speculated that we're going to get hit again this fall.
Correct.
With flu and possible COVID. So I think we should take our time and get all the facts before we start going out numbers.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other council comment? Any other council comment? I'm in favor of a workshop, and we'll work to get that scheduled. We'll coordinate with Controller Hoffmeister. But I will say this, it would be completely irresponsible and incompetent of us to not put something in place so that this does not happen again in the future. If that riverboat does shut down again, how many payments have we missed? If it continues to be closed, we're not getting anything coming in. So to base a budget, if you only have $5, why would you base a budget on $20 worth of spending? This is what we're talking about doing without putting something like this in place. So just keep that in mind while we're going into this workshop. That'll be held over. Ms. Nyla,
Wait.
I'm sorry.
We're gonna schedule a finance committee meeting.
Said workshop.
Workshop, whatever. Am I gonna be responsible for doing that or
I'll
not?
set that up with Controller Hoffmaster.
Because normally the issues when they meeting like committee, but if you want to set up,
If we're doing a committee meeting, that's different from a workshop.
that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Ms. Nyla, our first ordinance on second reading by title only. Without objection.
An ordinance on second reading by title only, creating section 94-79 and division 3 of chapter 94 of the Michigan City Municipal Code, adding provisions regarding traffic warning signs for children with hearing or vision impairment or disability. And this is introduced by Ms. Tillman, Mr. Simmons, Mr. Paul Przebalinski, Mr. Dabney, Ms. Deitch, and Mr. Don Pres.
Does the author have anything to add at this time?
Oh, yes.
I just wanted to say in regards to why I saw that there was a need for it was due to that there are children, and we have to where we're seeing vehicles exceeding speed limits in the neighborhood, and some of these speedings for residentials at 30, 35 miles an hour, but yet you go down Franklin Street or Main Street, it's only 30 miles. But then some of these high-speed areas are right across the street from residential parks. And these young children also want to get out and enjoy the fresh air and be able to cross in a safe capacity. So by having some type of warning or cautionary for their safety, in hopes that this will allow the pedestrians to be able to cross over safe manner. And not only with just having signs for a that may be when they fill this information out, application will be signed, and I hope that by doing it this way, it won't allow a department to make a determination, and it won't be nitpicked or preferential treatment or who's going to get assigned. So as long as they fill out this form properly and provide supporting documentation, which is pretty much a proof for some documentation from a physician indicating the handicap, the disability, then that will be able to justify them having to have this type in front of their home.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Is there anyone from the public who wish to speak on this ordinance? Having none, any council comment? Any council comment? Having none, this will be held over for third reading. Unfinished business. So this is some more COVID-related discussion we had. Approval of the final acceptance certificates during COVID-19. Final acceptance certificate, DLZ Guaranteed Energy Savings Performance Contract dated as of November 20th, 2018. The agreement between Energy Systems Group LLC and the City of Michigan City owner. The Senior Center solar work as defined in agreement have been delivered, installed, accepted as of the 20th of October 2019. The final acceptance. The police headquarters solar work as defined in agreement have been delivered, installed, and accepted as of the 17th of January 2020. Final acceptance date. April 7th, approved by the council, 9-0.
I move to approve.
Motion approved by Councilwoman Dyke.
Second.
Second by Councilman Paul Przebalinski. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Unfinished business. FYI, the council has to vote one member of Common Council to serve from the Michigan City Seaboard for a one-year term. Are there any, do we announce this now, or do we call for nominations, or have them by next? Ask for nomination.
All right.
Are there any nominations?
I'd like
I
to
do.
make a I'd like to make a nomination.
I have a nomination for Councilman Vice President. Is there a second? Second.
I have a nomination.
Okay, so there was a nomination for Council President by Tillman and second Councilman Fitzpatrick, Councilwoman Dyke.
I have a nomination for Councilwoman Dahlia Zegas.
We have a nomination for Councilman Dahlia Zegas. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a nomination for second. Dabney. Ms. Knight, up on the vote. Michael.
Mr. Simmons? Paul or
Did you
Dahlia?
get Councilman Prespolinski first?
Did you get my vote, Gail?
Yes, I did. Mr. Simmons?
Talia.
Ms. Jigas?
Paul Prespolinski.
President
Zegas.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Prespolinski.
Ziggis.
And Ms. Deitch.
Zegas.
We have 4 for Mr. Paul Prespolinski.
Congratulations, Councilwoman. New business. June 3rd, 22, this is a COVID. June 3rd, council made a motion to appoint Ms. Tia Parrott, Centier Bank to the Michigan City Revolving Loan Committee, a vote 9-0.
I move that we appoint Ms.
Support.
There's a motion by Councilwoman Dyke and a second by Council Dabney to appoint Tia Parrott Revolving Loan. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? New business, FYI. The council has one appointment to the Michigan City Police Commission due to the resignation of Mr. Mike Buda expiring 9/7. The council has one appointment to the Sustainability by May 1st, 2020 incumbent. The council appointment to the Youth Leadership term expired June 1st, 2020 incumbent Nate Patrick. The council has one appointment to the Michigan City Tree Board representing the City Neighborhood Association, term beginning immediately and will serve for 1 year. Do we have any comments from the mayor? Any comments from the public? Any comments from the public? Okay, public comment closed. Comments from the council? Council Simmons?
Yes, I would just like to say that we have a new hotel that opens during the second Mike quarter out in the 4411 motel located at Highway US 12. Last weekend, they were at 80% occupancy. By weekend. Actually, they opened July the 2nd. They presently have 22 rooms. No, I think they just, and going out there and viewing site, did a remarkable job hauling motel. The hotel in question used to be Golden Sand. Now they upped up that quarter. How many went to Washington Park past week?
I didn't go during peak hours. I drove through in the morning.
I drove through 11 o'clock on the 4th. There was no capacity. The cars were going back up over. Unbelievable. On the other hand, it causes you to worry. A lot of folks in such a small space out. I was just curious as who I went out there to take a view. Out of curiosity, I wanted to go out and see what the numbers act. And again, that's at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Any other council comments? Don President.
A few items. Number one, probably evening at 4 o'clock, going to have the negotiating team meeting. Number two, the park department going to be meeting on Wednesday. I know that was one of your top. I guess they're going to be voting on that tomorrow night. Right now, it's $8 car load. And what I've heard is that they're looking at maybe raising it $2 a carload. I think it should be at least $15 a carload. Saturday, I was down at Better's Alley and walking around, and this was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, trying to jog, but I couldn't jog, walk. But anyway, so I counted 80 cars from out of state, not from out of town, but from out of state. So if you multiply that times 15, everybody knows what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so instead of increasing it $2, let's increase it to $15 and be done with it. Bridgman, Michigan, I was up there over the week, and they charged $10 a head, and they just got a little bitty beat there. I mean, everybody, and I'm sure for the rest of the summer, Illinois, Chicago, those beaches are going to be closed because that mayor is not going to open those beaches up. Issues they got on there with COVID-19. Those people are coming here. A lot of them are coming to Michigan City. So I guess what I'm saying is, let's take advantage of it. Let's get the money and let's put it into our park department budget where they need the money. Okay, just wanted to comment on that. So hopefully there's some members from the park board listening this evening. The third thing, and I know that hopefully many of us have read it in the paper, seen it on Facebook, but Monday mornings they always have a cleanup down at Washington Park Beach. And that organization that does that is run by a lady, her name is Nora Riska and Michael Colburn. So they volunteer their time, gone out, they get supplies, they have buckets, gloves, sanitize, they have the and I've joined them a couple of times, and it does make a difference. Generally, they get maybe 8 or 9 people to come down and help out. If you can help for an hour, that's fine. If you can help 2 hours, it's fine. But what it does, it gives you the sense of accomplishment and community service, that you're down there taking care of the jewel of our community is that lakefront and that beach. So I just want to give a shout out to those folks. And I don't know if, the only reason I knew about it is because I was walking by and I saw the two guys working. That's about, and what they've done, the school system has now put a new fountain in there, and they've added LED lighting. So it looks really, really nice. There's a little bit more work, I believe, that has to be done to it, but it really looks nice for the Midtown area of Michigan City. And I know the two electricians that were working on that, Chris Montero and Tom Pillish. And I just want to thank Dave Williamson from the school system for doing that work. And as Councilman Simmons said, Washington Park was jammed Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But the department that I want to give a shout out to, the Michigan City Park Department, and the small crew that they have, like Councilman Dabney was alluding to, where they've had their crews cut back. And that department did a fantastic job keeping that lakefront cleaned up, ready to go at 7 o'clock in the morning for the visitors to come in for another day. And I tell you, the beach after, a busy weekend like that can look a little distorted by the end of the day, but they do a fantastic job. And I just want to thank Chris and his whole crew down there at the park department. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman.
Couple of things. First, congratulations. I know we didn't have a meeting, but so it's never too late to say congratulations to all the graduates from the schools. It seems like their year was hijacked. I pray that moving forward that they have big goals and big ideas. This is a hard lesson for them, and they're going to be our future leaders. And hopefully, going through this, they will do better and creating and making decisions for times like this. So I just want to congratulate them. We don't know what the future holds with the school systems here and how we're going to move forward, or even the university. So I just want to say that. Lakefront Park Department, I'm even okay with $20 for out-of-state cars. I think they're willing to pay it, but I totally agree. It was sold out. And then I was in traffic Sunday trying to get down Highway 12, and the traffic was backed up all the way back towards Moore Road, trying to get out of here. So we know there were thousands of people coming through here, Michigan. That were Chicago, that were all the way to all the way to Long Beach, Michigan City, and they embarked on our town. The other thing, fireworks. I don't know what we're going to do about that. It was horrible. It was horrible at my house. It was horrible at everybody. Okay, and it's just ridiculous. And how long it went on, and maybe there's some restrictions on time or something, but it was a lot. It was a lot going on. But with that being said, I do have an update that I need to talk about some job fairs from the Economic Development Corporation. We've been meeting bi-weekly with local businesses. We've been getting updated by the school system, United Way, Unity Foundation, the hospital. I know that we've seen a spike or an increase. I know last week, Tuesday, we had 19 cases. One day we had 1, then we had 13. I haven't seen the numbers. The numbers are increasing, and I'm hoping that everybody's practicing safe habits with sanitizers, your mask. I know that everybody doesn't want to wear a mask, but I think for the safety of your family and your loved ones. I have family in Texas. I was supposed to be there this week and had to cancel my trip. I had some loved ones that tested positive, And it's real. We know people, several people that we've grown up with have died here from Michigan City from COVID. And I just hope people are taking it serious. People still unemployed, still without jobs, still seeking assistance. And it's just important that as leaders that we set the example. So there's 2 job fairs planned, July 9th and July 16th. Location work 1, A Street, and it's posted on Facebook. If you need the information, I can send it. But they're very targeted. And you are asked to register on the EDCMC Facebook page or event that go to work1nw.com. On July 9th in the morning, there will be several organizations. There will be Glenhaven Management, the Donald 4411 in the Sweet House Supermarket, DECCO, Ivy Tech, Regional Insurance Navigators, and then Youth Out of School Program, work 1 on July 9th in the morning. In the afternoon, it will be manufacturing. You'll have Microcore, Summers Heating, Marbach, KLLM, Ivy Tech, Regional Insurance Navigators. But then on the 16th, we have in the morning healthcare, Help at Home, Help Instead Senior Care, Res Care, Center for Hospital Care, Regional Insurance Navigators. Then that afternoon, there'll be professional services on July 16th, and that's Indiana Department of Corrections and the Indiana Department of Transportation, Port County Government, Phillips College, and many more. So I'll be posting that. I know something was sent out to council, but these will be going on. I know that Mr. Hulse and the team have been working on several different opportunities for the city. And I'll close with that in the statement that they made, that the board made. And we know these are trying times. And I thank Officer Campbell. He's a friend. I call him my brother, Chief Campbell. And, we're here to support the police, but we have to also make sure that that this city is represented by the demographic that we serve. So I'll say that, but I just pray for everyone and just hope that everybody stays safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Council President.
Thank you, President Fitzpatrick. I wanted to thank Tracy Tillman for nominating me to the tree board for that position, because I take that pretty seriously on having a balance in our committees. But with that being said about the park, President brought up, is I think we ought to charge more than what you're talking about, because this is an issue about people crowding into Michigan City. They were at the state park. I went to work probably 3 weeks ago, and they were parked all the way down 49, all the way on the exchanges coming up to 12, and walking into the state park. So it's not going to get it's going to get worse. But what I want to know is something that I went into Fetter's Alley, and all I saw were Illinois cars. So I asked Mr. Shin the other day, what happened to the sign that was on there that said Michigan City residents only? That disappeared. Yeah, there was a sign up there that said Michigan City residents only in Fetter's Alley. So we need to find out, and that's a fact, that the citizens of Michigan City should have a place, and they did have it reserved for them, so they didn't have to deal with all that stuff down in the main parking lot. But also, yesterday, I believe the Supreme Court made a ruling on religious freedom in our country. 30 states have, I think it's called the Blaine Amendment, that withholds funding of government agencies to fund any religious organizations or to use their funding for religious organizations. So at this time, I think that we need to revamp the requirement for the Promise program to include all the students in parochial school or a private entity. Also, I been talking to the administration and to the city attorney, and at your next meeting, you will receive a item on the agenda revamping the Michigan City Police Commission. And that says that, my recommendations were to expand it to 5 members, but one critical issue that's in this is the commissioners that are nominated must pass a background check. And that, I think, is critical to what the chief was stating tonight about creating an atmosphere of transparency and professionalism. And also what he said, no axe to grind. That's the way we have to move forward on this item. And I think for the betterment of Michigan City, for all the neighborhoods, that we have to remember that we are all citizens of Michigan City, all of us. And we all want the same thing. We want to just enjoy our property, enjoy our family, and enjoy our neighborhood. So I think this is a big step, a positive step forward, and I want to thank, I want to thank the mayor and the city attorney for taking the time to meet with me and discuss this item, get it going. And but I will say this comment to Angie's comment about these fireworks. Yeah, there's a problem there. And I live with the problem. In my neighborhood, there's an individual selling it right next to a residential neighborhood. And I've already been talking to the city attorney about what the state law says and how we can regulate them and who's supposed to inspect. So, a safety issue, because there's requirements on how you have to store them. So in that complex where he's at, the individual's selling, all the buildings are right next to each other, and so if you have a mishap, half the block go up, or does the whole block go up? Because of this reason, it really came forefront to me. 2 years ago, I don't know what the heck they were setting off, but they burnt a hole in my boat tarp and a hole in the floor of my boat. Almost burn it up. So, I mean, I can understand the noise, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and you got to regulate the people that are selling you this stuff. So we have to look at that in the ordinance itself, and all the people that have license. I don't know, probably the fire marshal. But we just got to go, work on it a little bit. Get some more requirements.
Mr. President?
I agree with you, though. I agree with you. It was like crazy, big stuff shot off.
Just one more comment, and that goes to the firework comment. So I got a phone call from a gentleman that lives on Derby Street, and he had issues with fireworks, and he actually took pictures of the fireworks that the individual was shooting off, and they were commercial grade fireworks. I can't remember the exact, like 1.3 G or whatever it was. Yeah, but anyway, it's illegal to be fired off in the city. And then, this individual was firing them off till 12 o'clock at night. I think the fireworks ordinance needs to be looked at. It needs to be going over by the city attorney. And, let's get it under control. I mean, we're the folks that set the policy here. If we think fireworks are getting out of control, which I understand this year, there were no fireworks flushed. So I think that kind of made a difference over the whole issue of what was going on. But, still, these things are dangerous. They can burn houses down. They burn the hole in your car, burn your boat up. It's got something that needs to be reckoned with. And if people have animals in their homes, my daughter's got her dog over, and he was running up and down the steps all night. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna look into that with the city attorney and see what we can do with that ordinance, get that thing, make it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Any other council comment? Councilman?
All right, first of all, I'd like to remind people to fill out the census if they haven't done that. You go to my2020census.com because that's very important for our funding, the government, so please do that. I have my website up here, it's daliagigas.com, and what I did today is I went governor has in place. Monday morning at 9 a.m. our time, 10 a.m. Eastern, they're going to start taking these applications for rental assistance. Renters can qualify for up to $500 a month for 4 months, up to $2,000. The application's not that complicated, but there's a couple that you need to know about the application. So if you're and all of these links are up there, so that's why I kind of wanted to bring it up to online. So if you are a renter, you have to live outside of Marion County, which is fine. You've lost your job or part of your income due to COVID, so that's great. You're having trouble paying your rent and worried about being evicted. You're not receiving rental assistance from another source. And actually, if you are receiving it from another source, let's say 1 month you did get $50 from someplace, you can just eliminate that month and just use other months for the rental assistance. And it could be in arrears, except not in arrears before COVID. So there's like certain rules. It's not that hard, but you do have to get your landlord on this program because the money goes directly to the landlord. So there's a link for renters. There's a link for landlords in English and Spanish. And I think you should be ready, that morning to kind of go online. It's not a complicated, application. And if they have any questions, they can try to get in touch with me. So I do have that up there. And I'd like people to use it. I think it's going to be very popular. A little book discussion on just racial relationships, understanding racism, and our book that we're going to read first. It's So You Want to Talk About Rape by Ilioma Ulio, and it's really a highly rated book. I'm in the middle of it right now. We're going to have 2 virtual discussions from the library. Maybe that will lead to other books, but I just want to get that out there. The library is going to promote it as well. So just want to let you guys know. Check out my website. I try to pop a few things that are useful.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other council comment? Any other council comment? I just got one comment. So over the weekend, the holiday, everybody was the beach packed and all that. We ended up having a fatal shooting, and I think that was only 4 for the year, but that's 4 too many. And I don't know how far the investigation is going with the police, but I'm crying out to the public. If you know something, please report it. I mean, these things are going to continue unless we start taking people accountable. If it's okay, whoever this young man that murdered, his family has stuff. What if it's one of your families next time? What if it's my family next time? I would want someone to cooperate. And if I knew what was going on, believe me, I would be the first to contact Chief Campbell or whoever the investigator was, sure that whoever perpetrated this was brought to justice. I mean, this only going to continue unless you do something. I don't care what somebody talk about. We need to make being not a snitch not cool. Since snitch gets stitched or all the little catch stuff, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. If you know something about someone losing their life, it's your obligation as a member of the community to come forward. I don't care who you trying to protect or who you worried about somebody getting in trouble, because if I get of it, I'm reporting it, and I don't care who doesn't like it, and if I got to get stitches, whatever. But we cannot let this continue in our, because like I said, I got teenage sons, and what if it's one of them next time? Everyone else has kids. I mean, this isn't the first shooting that has happened in the last couple of weeks. This is the first fatal one in the last couple. Every weekend there's been more and more shootings, and if we're not reporting the people that are doing this, they're going to continue. They're going to be more emboldened, and it's going to escalate. So, with that being said, please, 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 if you know something, I don't know if we need to talk to Chief Campbell and set up an anonymous tip line or something where people could just share the information they have without fear of repercussions. But this has to stop, and I'm crying out, please, if you know something about the class, please report it. You know, everybody knows what I do for a living. Monday morning was completely different. I had a whole different plan for a morning, but I had to go do the autopsy on this young man. This is enough. I've had enough of it. I mean, it's not going to affect my bottom line one bit if we don't have to do homicide. And please remember that COVID-19 has not ended, and we're probably not out of the woods. It's probably going to get worse before it gets any better. And please stay safe, keep each other safe. And with that, do we have a motion? Councilman, you have anything to add?
I just, before we act on that motion, I wanted to concur on your statement about the idea of anonymous tip line. Definitely we need to try to get something in place, because you're absolutely correct. Somebody could be me standing in front of my house with my dog. Because where those shootings where the gunfire happened is not but like 6 blocks from my house. I've heard it. I've reported it. People, please report. Please be actively report what you see and you hear. The way you got to control our environment. Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn by Councilwoman. Second by Councilman President. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.